You know, after season 8, I really thought like this show was dead, but looks like it's walking again. So The Walking Dead Season 9 is of course the 9th season of the AMC hit show The Walking Dead, based on the comics of the same name, and this particular season is following on from the fallout of Season 8, which was of course All Out War, and we see how the characters are dealing with the defeat of Negan and the Saviors, and how Rick is continuing to lead the group and the communities into the future. So just to clear this up, I am a big fan of The Walking Dead. I'm a huge fan of The Walking Dead. I love the show. It's one of my favourites of all time. And obviously, I did start doing some Walking Dead videos on this channel. I kind of stopped doing it because I just wasn't really having the energy or the motivation or the time to do those videos on top of my reviews and also on top of my other channel as well. I found it kind of difficult to do those videos, so they did kind of fizzle out. But I'm a big fan of The Walking Dead, and I've got some of my stuff out here. I've got my Season 7 Blu-ray, Season 8 Blu-ray, and also some of my Funkos there. I do have the Seasons 1 to 6 box set up there. So, you know, I'm a big fan of The Walking Dead, and, you know, I'm going to be completely honest. My biggest, even before we get into the review, my biggest sort of, you know, ringing endorsement that I can give to Season 9 of The Walking Dead is that it made me fall in love with the show again. I had kind of fallen out of love with The Walking Dead, especially in Season 8, so much so I actually stopped watching the show in Season 8, I'm not afraid to admit that. Around halfway through Season 8, I checked out, I said, no, I'm done with the show. But Season 9, I came back because of the particular news surrounding Rick Grimes and Andrew Lincoln's exit. I did come back to the show just to kind of see how they were going to end off Rick Grimes' story, and within those first 5 episodes, the show had completely won me back. So the story of Season 9 is kind of split into 2 halves with, you know, 9A and 9B. It's kind of split directly down the middle. You have the first half of the season, which really focuses on Rick and focuses on the communities and how they're building and continuing to grow after the defeat of the Saviors and Negan at the end of All Out War. And then you have 9B, which deals with the new threat of the Whisperers. So let's just dive into them one by one. So let's start off with the stuff with Rick and the communities. This was the less exciting sort of end of the season, I suppose. The first half was less exciting than the second half, but I guess that's really what you want, really, in a season, is you want it to get better and more exciting as it goes on. But this first half of the season wasn't bad. Like I say, especially in the first 5 episodes, the show won me back. And obviously the whole kind of build-up in this first half of the season was, firstly, to get to episode 5, which was Rick Grimes' final episode, Andrew Lincoln's final episode, and then moving into the mid-season finale, where we finally got introduced to the Whisperers. So, talking about Rick Grimes' final episode, obviously I actually did a full episode review on this, so you could check that out, but wow. What an ending to a character. Like, I mean, I really felt like, you know, The Walking Dead could have really suffered from this. Like, The Walking Dead could have this really could have backfired on them. You know, getting rid of the main character like that, it could have backfired, but it really didn't. This episode was potentially my favourite episode of The Walking Dead ever. Like, it was so beautifully made, it was so well shot, it was so well acted, the character cameos were fantastic, and just bringing the story of Rick Grimes to a close in that way, I thought was pitch perfect. It was brilliant. And then outside of that, all the other stuff going on as well, like even the conflict between Rick and Daryl in the early parts of the season, I thought was really interesting, and seeing how these communities are still trying to develop, like Hilltop with Maggie, and then you had the Kingdom as well. You know, these are all trying to kind of coexist, and it wasn't quite working in the way that Rick imagined it. And I thought it was really nice in that way, the fact that they're trying to show that, you know, it wasn't this perfect idea that Rick had. There were contingencies, and there were things that weren't working. And I think it was nice to actually show that it wasn't as, you know, easy fix as I think Rick first imagined it to be. And then when we get past that, and we get past Rick's death on the show, and we have the 6-year time jump, and we see how they just didn't even stick to the idea, and all the communities just drifted apart. I thought it was really nicely done. And then moving into the second half of the season, we had to deal with the new threat of Alpha and the Whisperers, and the Whisperers I thought were absolutely phenomenal. A really fantastic introduction to them in this season, because they really did a good job of establishing the Walkers as a threat again. The Walkers haven't been a threat in this show since the early seasons, because, you know, as you would expect, this isn't necessarily a complaint, but as you would expect, you know, we adapt to this world and we change things, and, you know, the Walkers have been around for a long time. We know how to deal with them at this point, so they're not really a threat. Like, every time we see a Walker, it's just like, oh yeah, we know how to approach them, we know how to take them down. But now with the Whisperers, there's a new threat out there now, because we don't know, when you see a herd of walkers, you don't know if they're walkers or if they're humans. And I think that's really interesting. That really adds a lot of threat to the walkers again, which again kind of brings the show back to its core values, and I really enjoyed that. Just seeing these characters trying to figure out, you would hear them talking to each other, and you could hear like the whispers, and then you'd have to try and figure out which one was a walker and which one wasn't. And they always like watch the legs, watch the hands, things like that. So they're trying to look for the little subtleties that would kind of recognize them as walkers or recognize them as humans. Just really awesomely done in that way. And also Alpha being our main villain, Samantha Morton, I thought was fantastic in this role. Really terrifying, really scary. She really came out in full force. She really proved her real ruthlessness, especially with the addition of characters like Beta, played by Ryan Hurst, who I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of Beta in season 10, but he had a really cool fight with Daryl as well. Oh my god, the fight with Daryl was amazing. And then we also had the introduction of Lydia as well, a very interesting character, especially her story with Henry. Henry was a bit of a kind of controversial character this season. Some people liked him, some people didn't. I quite liked Henry, to be honest. I thought he did a pretty good job of what he had to do, taking Carl's comic role. I thought that was quite well done. And I think Lydia, I thought was a great character. I really like Lydia, actually. When she was introduced, I was a little worried about her, but I actually think she did a really good job of just showing, just how confused she was. And again, when you actually get that flashback episode with Alpha, and you see what actually Lydia's life was like, you kind of understand why she's like that way. And I really like the fact that Daryl is kind of like looking after her now. Like, Daryl sees himself in this girl, and he's kind of taken it upon himself to look after her. So all the stuff with the Whisperers I absolutely loved. So going into the Whisperer War, which is what we're going to be going into in season 10, I think they've done a really good job of just establishing the Whisperers as a viable threat, like they did with the Saviors back in season 6 and 7. Speaking of the Saviors, we also had Negan back in this season. He is in prison now. After Rick Grimes spared his life, he's now living in prison in Alexandria. And Negan is maybe my favourite character this season, honestly. I think that he was just brilliant in this, because Negan has changed so much. I mean, I'm going to go into details with the 6-year time jump in a little bit, but, after those 6 years, you see how different he is. Like, he is a broken man now. He is a completely different person. And especially in the back half of the season, the more you see with him, his relationship with Judith, which I think is actually really sweet. And then when you see him actually going out there to protect her in the season finale, it kind of proves that Negan has changed. It proves that Negan is a different character to the character we knew in season 7 and 8. This is a completely different character now. He's a completely changed man. And I think that Jeffrey Dean Morgan just killed it in this season. Absolutely fantastic. His story arc, his different character interactions with Michonne and then with Judith, it was just really well written as well. I loved everything to do with Negan in the season. He was kind of the unsung hero, really, of this season. He doesn't get that much play here. He's really not in that much of the season, but when he is in there, my god, does he leave an impression. Also, pacing is a huge credit I want to give to this season, because normally what The Walking Dead would do in season 7 and 8 in particular is, if the characters were traveling from one area to another, they would spend a whole episode on the traveling. And we don't want to see that. Viewers don't care about that, and that's why season 7 and 8 were so poorly paced. But what's great about season 9 is that if there's an episode where they need to travel somewhere, it just skips the travel. Like, we just see them leave and then we see them arrive. Maybe we'll see something during the travel. Like, we'll see, like, if there's an event that happens. But for the most part, it's just, it doesn't show any of that because we don't care. It's boring. We want to get to the location. I mean, obviously there's that phrase that the journey is better than the destination, but that is not true when it comes to The Walking Dead because it's always boring. So we really want to see them just get to the destination, and season 9 just cuts to the chase, and I love that. And I said I'd talk about the time jump, and yes, we do have a 6-year time jump. There is actually a 1.5-year time jump between season 8 and 9, but there's really not too much to talk about there. But in regards to the 6-year time jump, that was a big surprise. Obviously, Carol, completely different now. She has the long hair, which was a really nice little character development, because obviously the reason why Carol had her hair short was because her abusive husband used to use it to pull her back, so she cut it short. But now that she's with Ezekiel, she clearly feels comfortable enough to grow her hair back out that way. Really, really nice tidbit. Also, the fact that Daryl's just gone, like, he's just living by himself now. He doesn't want a part of anything after Rick died, or well, as far as he knows, he's died. I really loved all that, and seeing how the world had just changed and developed, and even just character interactions and how characters had changed and developed and progressed. Like, by the time we get to the 6-year time jump, like, we see that Gabriel and Rosita are a couple now, and also Rosita's pregnant as well. Like, there's just all these different things going on. It just made The Walking Dead so interesting again, and that was what was brilliant about the 6-year time jump. We're still discovering things. We're still finding out things that happened in those 6 years. 6 years is a long time, and we're still finding out what happened happened in those 6 years, which I think makes the show so interesting. And I really enjoy finding out all this different stuff. It was just so well integrated into the season. And again, just adds a level of intrigue that The Walking Dead has not had for a long time. And of course, with The Walking Dead, we do get a lot of deaths as well. There was a lot of deaths this season, actually. Not only when we start off talking about Rick. I mean, I know Rick isn't actually dead, but as far as the show is concerned, and as far as the characters on the show are concerned, he's dead. So I'm just going to count that as a death. And then we got the death of Jesus as well in the mid-season finale, which was a fantastic death as well. Really establishing how powerful the Whisperers are. Because Jesus is the Walking Dead's best fighter. Like, he was basically a ninja, and even he was kind of mistaken for this. And the way that he was killed, you know, the way that he was just killing all these walkers, no problem, then one just dodged out the way and stabbed him. Brilliant. It was so well done. And Aaron's reaction to it all was great. And then, of course, we had the Pike scene, which was what this season was kind of building up to in episode 15. If you're a fan of the comics, if you're a reader of the comics, you will know that this moment was coming this season, and that was the moment where Alpha creates the border, and the border of heads. And we got about 9 deaths, I think it was 9. Some of them were kind of a bit more minor characters, people like Tammy Rose, and also the introduction of the Highwaymen, who were kind of just there to die, I suppose. But then we got some really big ones like Henry, and Tara, and Enid. Characters who I really loved, especially Tara. Tara is actually one of my favourite characters, so to see her die I found really upsetting, especially when this season they actually gave her something to do. Like, they actually gave her some story, because after Jesus died, she took over the hilltop, so it was kind of like they finally gave Tara a story and then they killed her off. But also Enid went, which was a big surprise, and also so did Henry, which I also thought was quite a big surprise. And I think the biggest surprise of all of it was that Ezekiel actually survived the season, which I think everyone pretty much thought, like, everyone's number one prediction about this season was that Ezekiel was going to die. But Ezekiel actually survives this season, so we are going to see him next season, which is great, which is awesome. I love Ezekiel. I love Kari Payton over there, my Funko Pop up there of Ezekiel. So, you know, the deaths this season, they were really good ones, they were impactful, and they weren't just complete there for shock value, you know, like it was when they killed off Abraham for no reason in season 7. It's much better than that, or like when they killed Carl, even worse, in season 8. It's a lot better than that, and it just works a lot better, and just comes across a lot better to the audience, I think, as well. And the finale was fantastic for this season. Obviously, episode 15 was the Pike scene, where we had all those big deaths and things like that. It was a very shocking episode. Episode 16 took a lot more of a slow route and took a lot more of a peaceful route. There wasn't really that much going on. There were some really cool moments, but the most important thing about it was it did introduce snow to The Walking Dead. So we do have, you know, the snow covering the landscape. I'm not sure how much snow we're going to have in season 10 itself. I don't think it's going to be much, honestly, because I imagine there will be a brief time jump now in between season 9 and 10, because there is normally a time jump, so I think we will get that. But it was nice because we actually got to see how the characters had to change and interact to actually, you know, adapt to the snowy weather, because we've never seen that on The Walking Dead. Especially that scene where all the walkers were coming out of the snow. That was fantastic. Like, I loved that. I thought that was brilliant. And again, made the walkers a threat, and the walkers were kind of different in the snow as well. And seeing how the characters had to change and adapt. We obviously had, like, Lydia, who was, like, contemplating suicide in the episode, which was really just a character turn I did not expect. The kind of conflict between Daryl and Ezekiel was really interesting. Like, there was just so many great things in this finale, and of course my favourite thing was just Negan going out there to rescue Judith. I just thought it was absolutely brilliant, the fact that they did that, because I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with Negan next season, because I have some theories and hints about where his sort of story's going, and if it's going in that direction, I'm going to be very pleased. Speaking of season 10, we are going to be moving into the Whisperer War next season, and I think this is going to be very interesting. Like I say, I think in season 9 they did a really good job of establishing the Whisperers as a threat, and they did a really good job of actually showing them that these people are people who are kind of worth fighting a war over. And we get to actually see, you know, all these different people. Obviously, I do believe that Alpha is going to die by the mid-season finale. We are going to see Negan chop off her head like he does in the comics. And also we're going to see Beta then take over and lead the war. It's going to be great. I think season 10, you know, season 9 really felt like, you know, season 9 was a new beginning. You know, that's kind of what this whole season was about. It was a new beginning. And season 10 is really going to follow on from that. And I think that season 9, as a kind of like new starting point for The Walking Dead, you know, after Rick's left and we had that 6-year time jump, it was like a new start for The Walking Dead, a new start for the show. Season 10 is just going to pick up from this fantastic start, and I thought it was brilliant overall. Just seeing season 10, I think it's going to be a great season on top of this one. Overall, I thought The Walking Dead season 9 was absolutely tremendous. I was so impressed with this season. So much so, like I said at the beginning of the video, it really made me fall in love with the show again, which was a feeling I had not felt for a very long time. I have not loved this show since, really, I'd say maybe season 4. I've not loved this show, but I really love it again now. Like, season 9 has just won me back and secured it in my mind that yes, this is one of my favourite shows of all time, because this show and this season just felt so much like what I loved. Bringing in the new showrunner of Angela Kang, getting rid of Scott Gimple was such a fantastic decision, because she was really able to show that there was so much fresh blood on The Walking Dead who was willing to actually step up and, you know, show that they had other talents. And, you know, season 9 just proves that. This season felt so fresh, it felt so energetic, and that's just, energy is not a word I associate with The Walking Dead for the past few years. So to see that get to that point, I was so happy. And I'm going to say it right now, The Walking Dead Season 9 is definitely my favourite season of The Walking Dead, and if that doesn't tell you anything, I don't know what will. So have you guys seen The Walking Dead Season 9? If you have, make sure you let me know all your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let's have a conversation about this season in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, if you want to see more movie reviews and TV reviews from me, be sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you guys again next time.